Hi everyone, here I will be showing you how to create your own makeup foundation from all the products that I listed for you on my blog. So I have here the Arrowroot, which is our base powder, and this is primarily what you're going to use the most from your powder foundation. And I have the zinc oxide, which comes in a pouch like this. Everything that I bought here that you see all came from Amazon. Everything can be bought from there, and it's not really expensive at all. If you think about it long term, all of these products have lasted me over 6 months, and I've barely made a dent in any of these bags, although I am guilty of eating the cacao powder, obviously. So we have the zinc oxide, which is going to be your sun protection because this is what they use in sunscreen. So that's good, and it also adds just a little more filler to your powder as well to make it last longer. And then we have the cacao powder, yes, the chocolate. um, this is going to be the start of adding color to your powder, but it's not going to be the primary source of color because nobody's face looks like that all the time. The color on our face constantly changes as we're in the sun throughout the year, so this isn't going to be your only source of color, so don't worry, don't panic when you see how dark that is. And then I have here the Aztec Secret Indian Healing Clay. This stuff is great because it's technically a wet mask that you put on your face that clears your pores. As it says here, a deep pore cleansing clay. I bought this and I have used it a bunch of times, but you can still see there's so much left in there. I really only have to ever use a spoonful of this magical stuff to cover my entire face. So that's great. And it can also be added to your makeup foundation because it has a slight grayish green color, and it's great for my olivey tone skin that I have, and I couldn't find anything else that worked better than this. Plus, it's also cleansing your pores while you're wearing it, so what could be better? And so now, yes, I'm sure you're wondering, I have some cooking herbs and spices here. I have the cinnamon and the ginger and ground nutmeg. These are just for color. I'm sure if you looked up each of these, they're all in some fashion good for your skin. I feel like the cinnamon would be a good anti-inflammatory spice, but I read up that there's nothing bad to have them on your skin, so they're very good in variation of color. Like some people have a more yellowy toned skin, so that's why I picked the ginger. And you know, for the darker skin tones, the cinnamon works really well because it's a little darker, I think, than the cacao powder, and it has a little more of a bronzy tone to it than the cacao powder for all the darker skin types. And then the ground nutmeg, which is a little more of a beigey color than a brown. So this is good for like tan skin, I think. And I feel like I do sometimes in the summer get to be as dark as this, so I usually in the summer will add more of this stuff to my foundation. So it's great. I can just keep adding whatever more I think I need onto my powder. I don't have to remake a whole new batch. And also we have the vitamin E oil here. It just comes in this bottle. It's by Nature's Bounty. This I use on so many things on my skin, and I will show you throughout the process of how you add this to your powder foundation. I'm sure you're wondering how it stays a powder when you add this oil to it. It's just to give your skin that added moisture that everybody needs, but it's not by adding too much. Your skin's not going to be oily. because that's also what this does, is absorbs excess oil. And the lavender and tea tree oil is just, you know, a calming agent and scent, because all of these are going to create just this elaborate smell when you put it on your skin. And so this might calm the smell a little bit for people. And the tea tree oil is just good for your complexion overall. So that will be added to it as well. Okay, so let's get started. Now, I use the clear bowl so that you could see, and I'll try to kind of show you the color and how much of everything that I add to it as we go along. I'm only going to be making an amount just for an example, but say you're wanting to make enough foundation for at least a couple months, I would times what I'm doing by 4 or 5. But this is really just all a trial and error. I'm just going to show you the steps that I use and in overall how much of everything that I use, but this is really all based upon the color of your skin. So it's a constant, you know, testing and adding more and testing. But I wouldn't test it here on your palm. I would test it here. And I would even just test it on areas of your face, because under your eyes could be completely different than the outer part of your jawline, because it is for me. You might have completely different color areas on your skin, like such as, you know, the bridge of your nose might be a lot darker than your cheeks. So if you have to create 2 different kinds of powder that are a little bit different, then do that, because these work well being blended together. But you shouldn't really have to make more than one set of the foundation powder. But just in case, I would just keep testing it and testing it on your face over and over, or on, like I said, the wrist of your arm there. All right, so I'm going to start with the root powder, because this was our base to start with. So I'm just going to take a spoonful of this. Now be careful, I laid this out on the table because this stuff gets super messy, gets everywhere, so don't do this in a place where you don't want powder all over. Okay, so I'm just going to take a spoonful of the arrowroot and dump it into the bowl, and that's going to be our base. Okay, and then I'm going to go with the zinc oxide. Now, like I said, you could start out with a whole cup of the arrowroot, and a whole cup of makeup should last you 2 months. I'm going to say 2 months. If you use this 100% of the time when you wear makeup, a cup of this arrowroot and a cup of the zinc oxide will last you over 2 months, I think, because then you're adding all of these to it too. So it adds to a volume. But even still, this is quite a lot to start with. So if you're just doing a tester route, then you can do what I'm doing and just go with a spoon first, you know, and maybe as you're going, write down how many spoonfuls of what that you're using. But when you're using the white powders, it doesn't really matter how much. You know, you'd rather have more sun coverage, so use a lot of zinc oxide and use a lot of arrowroot. If you're looking to make a month's amount of product, you just have to keep up with how much of the color you're adding to it, because you may start to notice when you're adding the color it's not dark enough. Okay, so now I'm going to start with the cacao powder. And I'm just putting a spoonful of this in here because it's going to take a lot to make this white become a little darker. And I'm going to stir this really well. There's going to be clumps in here that you'll need to get. If you have something better than a spoon that will get rid of some of these clumps in here, I would use that. Like a pill crusher or something. But you're going to mix this really well. And see, I mean, this powder that I already have right here isn't that dark. This is going to happen, especially if you're making a lot. So don't be alarmed. Like I said, it takes a lot of trial and error. But I'm telling you, once you get it and you make enough of it, you won't have to do this process for a long time. Okay, so when I feel like it's completely mixed a lot, this is what I got. It's like a light beige color, you know, yeah, a light beige, but you know, not everybody's face is this color, so we're not just gonna stick with that. If you want it a little darker, by all means, add some more cacao powder. You know, like I said, I'm just doing an example here for you. So let's just say I added some more cacao powder. Do where you all can see me. Alright, so it's a little darker. Not by much. Again. And see already, this is a lot of powder. This is a lot of powder in here. This is a lot. This is practically almost what I have in my container right now, and this is the amount that has lasted me like 6 months. But again, I don't wear it every day. Okay, so let's just say I like the color, even though we're going to be adding more color. Okay. Now, like I said, if you're an olivey complexion, and even if you're not, you still could use this. Just don't use a lot. But if you can see the difference, I don't know if you can from here. See how this is kind of an olivey green tone, maybe a little grayish. I don't know how it looks on the camera, but it makes for those that have an olivey skin complexion. So I like to use it. And I just add a little bit. I can add more later if I really want to. It doesn't change much of the color of the powder as you're going. It may lighten it slightly, but it doesn't really change much. It's not really a noticeably changeable color. Okay? So you can see that. It's a lot of powder. I really haven't even used that much. I'm using a spoonful. Okay. So now we're going to add the cinnamon. Again, this is probably darker than the cacao powder. So I advise just using the sprinkle side and sprinkling it in there. I wouldn't overdo it. I would test it first. Again, on your arm, you can just dip your finger and get a good little amount in there and just test it. Now that's way too light for me. I can already tell. Way too light. So just rub it off. Okay? And I'm telling you, you're going to be going back and you're going to be adding more of these colors in here. It's going to seem scary because you think, oh, this is way too dark. But honestly, it's not. When you put that much arrowroot and zinc powder as your base, it's going to take a lot to get your powder to be a darker color. So that's where I say don't be afraid to experiment, honestly, because once you get the color, all of this is so much more inexpensive in the long run. I paid with everything probably $50 or $60, but I'm telling you, I'm already a year in, and all this I have left, so it's great. All right, so I'm going to add some of the ginger. This is going to have some more yellowy tones. It's not coming out really well. So if you really have to use the pouring method of your spices, go ahead. If you're that daring. And then you'll start to notice the smells that start coming out. And you'll start to get hungry. You feel like your face is just a cooking mechanism. And again, it didn't change the color of the powder very much, adding the ginger. But I don't think it's something you're really going to see from here. You're going to see it on your face. So now let's add the nutmeg. This, I swear, is going to add a difference, because I think a lot more people are closer to being this shade of tan, and it smells really good too. So it's really nice to have on your skin. Okay, so I added the ground nutmeg. Get all the clumps on the bottom here. Gotta do that every once in a while, because then you won't realize actually how much color is on the bottom. And I'm making a mess. So like I said, do this somewhere where you won't mind making a mess. Okay. So we've added all the colors we possibly could, and this is the outcome. It's not that dark, again, but like I said, if you start out small with everything and just work your way darker and darker. And if you realize you found your color at this amount of powder, but you think to yourself, well, I want more volume of this, then you're going to have to add more arrowroot and zinc oxide, which is going to lighten your powder. So if you want a lot of an amount to start with, I would start out with a lot of the arrowroot and zinc oxide so that you can just constantly work yourself darker rather than feeling like this isn't enough, and then you add more root and then it scares you because now it's lighter. So again, now we can test my finger. Now you'll notice it doesn't seem like the powder sticks to your finger. That's probably true. See, and it's still very light for me. So I would have to go darker, and I would probably add more cacao powder. Carefully add this in there. Again, at one point, you could test this on your face. And if I could describe this makeup, this is not going to be a heavy coverage makeup. If you're looking for that, this is not it. This is more of like a sheen. It will give your face some color. I will say that. It does not cover up the things you might really want covered up. You will need a heavier foundation for that. Like if you have really protruded rosacea, or just zits on your face, this isn't going to cover it. Okay, so I mixed that pretty well, and this is the color that I got. Now, say you're happy with the color, say it matches your skin and you're ready to move on. So what I add next is the lavender and tea tree oil, and I'll usually just add a few drops. Don't be afraid, it's not going to hurt your powder. Now it will look like it has wet some of your powder with like the little droplets. It's okay, just mix it in. Just mix it in really well. Like I said, I think a pill crusher would be the best thing for this, and I don't have one because the spoon is just making a horrid mess everywhere. Now you'll start to notice your powder might be kind of almost like it got damp. That's what you want. It's okay. As long as it's not like saturated looking. A lot of it will probably fall to the bottom, so you really need to scrape the bottom too really well. And you can probably look, if you use a clear bowl, if you have any excess color that didn't get squished, blended thoroughly. Now, we're going to use the vitamin E oil. Same thing. Don't squeeze it in there. Just let the droplets fall. If you have to squeeze slightly, then do that, but do not squeeze too hard, otherwise it'll come out like a stream. And it really depends how much powder you have for how many dots you should use. The same thing will happen as the tea tree oil. It'll look like it got wet, but if you just blend it in really nicely, you won't notice. And then it'll start to stick to your spoon a little. You can just wipe that off, and it'll look darker. See? And that's scary looking, but it's okay. It's not going to change the powder. If you need to add more, then you can add more. Again, depending on how much powder you made. But I would just go with a little bit at a time. Now your powder may constantly look clumpy, and when you have it in a little, I don't know what you would put this in. I have a little mason jar that's like this big, and I have my powder in it. If I use it, I tend to have to shake the mason jar to kind of get the clumps out, but I think your brush just naturally declumps everything that's in the mason jar, so even if you still have little clumps in here, it's okay. As long as it looks like everything's mixed very well. It's okay. I'm going to rub my spoon. This is pretty close. This is pretty good. Now again, and this isn't with a brush that I would blend on my skin, but that's pretty good. It's a pretty good color. So I would basically say that I'm done if I like the way it looks on my face and it blends very well. See, now if you want to, if you have more than one little mason jar or whatever you're going to keep this in, you could take some, put it in one. Now, and here's what I haven't done yet, but I had just thought of that would be great, brilliant. Say you kept a little bit of this in another compact or what have you little container. And say you added some more of the dark. You could create a bronzer. You could create a darker color to use for contouring. You could even add the lighter colors if you wanted to create the contouring for the lighter parts of your skin that you would contour, like your chin and the bridge of your nose. And I had never thought of that until recently, but now I'm telling you, I am spilling the beans. That's also something that you could work with if you realize you made too much. You could save some and start adding more colors and creating other variations of foundation for just contouring your face. Okay? And that concludes how to make foundation powder. I hope you all enjoyed this. If you can think of any other products that you use to make this, I would love to know, because I haven't found anything better. Or if you have another strategy, maybe another additive that helps your makeup look thicker, or have more coverage on your face, I would love the feedback.